welcome to my channel. Okay, don't mind me, I can be giddy sometimes. So today we're going to talk about podcasts. Like, today we're going to talk about podcasts. Okay, who doesn't like podcasts? Like, if you don't like podcasts, just stop watching this video because I don't even know what you're doing here. Okay, sorry, I'm kidding. No, I'm not. Okay, I'm kidding. So if you don't like podcasts, I think that you should stay. This is the reason why you should stay, and here is why. Because podcast is amazing. Podcast is life. Podcast is everything. It's everything you need. Okay, cut. Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be talking about podcasts. I'm going to be sharing 5 podcasts that I absolutely love and I would recommend to anybody. Yeah, and these podcasts are very neutral, so they don't have any affiliation with career or religion. So these are podcasts that you can watch if you're of any background. You understand what I'm trying to say? Yeah, so let's get started. Yes. So I think for starters, we should talk about how I got into podcasts. So I got into podcasts a while back when I was in my NYC. They break my heart. After a while, I was like, oh no, this love thing, I don't understand. Like, is it for me or is not for me? You know what I'm saying? And so I was so devastated. I'm very sensitive, so when things happen to me, it's almost like it happened times 5. I feel things very deeply. So when that breakup came, it was just like I was exhausted, because in that relationship I had fought. I became a lion, I became a tigress, I became a lioness, I became a tigress, I became everything. We were just fighting back and forth. It was just exhausting. And then we now broke up. Like, you know, I already turned into that person I didn't want to be turned into, and then we now broke up. So I was just so confused about everything. I was confused about love, especially. I was like, this love thing, I should go back to my loner life, because this thing is not paying me. So I decided to give myself a chance and started being intentional about learning more about love. Mind you, I love love. I love, you know, all of those feelings and all of those things. And so I decided to look for, you know, things that would build, you know, my trust in love, build my trust in love again, make me believe in love again, you know. And in my research, because I like to research every small thing. I'll be researching. I don't even understand what's up with me, but I will be researching every time, and that's what I did. And then I came across podcasts, and I was like, okay. I'd been hearing about podcasts for a while, but I wasn't really, I really didn't know so much about it. So I decided to explore it. Like, no harm, no foul, right? If you're a 90s kid, you would know how important radio was. Like, radio was life. I remember that my boyfriend from high school shouted out to me using radio, and I was like, oh my god, it was so sweet. Oh my god. I'll just call his name, but he knows himself. You're a real G. You taught me how to. So I'm going to divert a little bit. My boyfriend in high school, and that was the only boyfriend I had in high school, he taught me a lot about love. I often wonder how somebody of his age learned so much about love, you know, learned so much about you know, how to be that person that, you know, radiated such love. I suspect that it was based on how he was raised, you know, the family he was raised in and everything, because there were a lot of things I learned about love. I learned about, you know, being, you know, in love and all of those things from him. That being said, let's move on. So I decided to check out podcasts, and there were a couple that I saw. There were three that stood out for me when it came to love: Modern Love, Love Me, and This Is Love. So there were others that I saw, but when I went through them, I just stuck to the ones I found out. So after exploring some of the ones that I explored, I stuck to this top three for love: Modern Love, Love Me, and This Is Love. And then over time, I kept listening to podcasts, and there are certain podcasts I still listen to, but for neutrality or just for fun or learning new things, I stuck to Everything Is Alive and Radio Diaries, and I'm going to talk about them really quickly. So Modern Love. So Modern Love is like a newspaper column in the New York Times. Is it New York Post? Yeah, it's the New York Times. So there's I think there's a part in the New York Times where a column in the New York Times where they write about, they have the Modern Love pieces, and then they decided to turn it into podcasts. And so Modern Love is about people's love stories. So at first I thought it was going to be about love stories of just two people, human beings, but I've heard a lot of love stories about different things. I've heard people's relationship with their parents, people's relationship with their pets, people's relationship with their friends, and things that relate into love, because honestly love is very wide and broad if we're going to talk about things on a level playing field. And like there's just this sweetness that comes from it. I've heard about autism, the relationship with an autistic child with their parents. I remember there's this one that really stuck out for me. This guy that was dying, this woman that was dying, and she I think she started sending out mails and messages to potential women that would help, like that would date her husband when she was dead. Like, in your mind you feel like that is so, that's so boundary crushing. Why would you do that? But in a way it is sweet and kind. They had such a beautiful relationship, and she was dying, and like because of how much she loved him, she didn't want him to be alone. She wanted him to experience love again. So it was that beautiful story. It was like such a beautiful story to listen to. And then there was this other story about this woman that was having conflicting feelings about dating younger guys, and eventually she dated this younger guy, and they got married, and like they've been living good. And there are just a lot of stories that I've watched. There was this one that the child talked about her relationship with his or her goldfish. Okay, the parents talked about the child's relationship with his or her goldfish. And there was one that this guy talked about his relationship with his neighbor. Then people talking about how death affected them, how diseases affected their relationship with people they loved, people meeting on first date and having really weird experiences. They're just like all of these stories that are so sweet and interesting. Oh my god. To be honest, there was a point I had the Modern Love mode, like, okay, I'm in the mood to listen to Modern Love, and I would listen to it. And there were times when I would just listen to it because I feel some type of way, what I'm saying. I've listened to Modern Love for a couple of years now, and if anybody asks me to recommend podcasts to them, I surely, no matter how tough you are, I think I'll still chip in Modern Love because I love Modern Love so much. The next one I would recommend is This Is Love. This Is Love is sweet. Oh my god, like. And the sweet thing about This Is Love is that it's also similar to Modern Love, but there is a mixture of stories of things about people from around the world. So I remember that there are stories of people going to places for the first time, people experiencing things like going to a park. I remember there was one that I listened to. I know that it was a guy that went to, I think, a national park, and for some reason I think he came across a bison yeah, a bison. And so a bison is a wild animal that is like a bull. I think it's like a wild bull, something like that. And so he came across this bison in the wild park, and I can't remember what happened, but he got injured, and before he knew it, he found himself like in an helicopter being transported to the hospital. So that story was quite profound. And then I know I've heard stories about, you know, this woman that had that opened a what's it called, an art gallery in Italy. You know, there are these stories about, like, you know, these very warm stories about, you know, me you know, going to a tribe visiting a tribe for the first time, you know, people's relationships with, you know, animals, and you know, people building things. Like, it is just like sweet, warm, interesting, you know. And the sweet thing about This Is Love is that they actually interview these people most times, and the people tell their stories for themselves. Modern Love does that to an extent, but Modern Love reads the stories of the people, and at the end they interview the people to find out, you know, what's happening in your life right now, you know, how is this going, you know, you wrote this story about, you know, this thing that you loved, or this thing that you wanted to talk about, like, how is that going, you know what I'm saying. But Modern Love Me mostly talks about mostly gives, like, a lot of times they go to the place, like, okay, if you're talking about Italy, and you know, the art gallery, a lot of times they go there, and as they're walking through, they tell us about it, they describe it, and you know, it just helps you to build imaginations in your head, and it's just very sweet and warm. There's also a lot of talk about life, you know, things going on in people's life, things that people have faced, you know, like difficult situations they've been in, like, you know, facing animals that, you know, were so scary, their experience before, their experience in the middle of it, their experience after. You know, it's very similar to Modern Love, but in a way it is different. Like, you know how things have their own vibe, you know, there's this warmth that surrounds most of these things. Next is Love Me. So Love Me is similar to This Is Love and Modern Love, but it's very focused on love. So different stories about love, sweet. And I remember that one that stood out to me was this guy. I can't remember his name, but he spent most of his like 20s in a prison cell, and he learned about love. Like, so he got into the prison when he was about 19, so he learned about love from the older men in the prison. And this prison was, you know, one of those tough prisons where, you know, they were close to a desert. So he told his story, and honestly, that one stood out for me. Love Me doesn't, you know, release episodes anymore. I feel like maybe they've done, like, they in their mind they finished, you know, what they wanted to do. But I absolutely recommend Love Me, because I know that I've watched every single thing. I remember going back a couple of times to check if they had been updating it, because I actually enjoyed it. Okay, I actually enjoyed, you know, listening to Love Me, and I would totally recommend it. Now, I keep looking up because, you know, there's this bird that keeps making noise, and it's annoying me because it's just screaming into my video. Like, guys, shut up, you know, or just go somewhere else. This is not a forest, you get me? Nonsense. Pardon me. The next I recommend is Everything Is Alive. Everything is alive. See, I'm creative, and when I see things that are creative, my eyes just bulge out. They just become very big and become very, you know, excited and happy. Sometimes I can't control my happiness, but you know, when I saw Everything Is Alive, I was like, okay, let's see how it is. And I love it. So Everything Is Alive is a podcast that talks about non-living things and how they would feel if they had emotions. I think it's like a personification literary piece. So personification is giving human attributes to non-living things, or things that are not human. You get me? So I remember they talked about a Sharpie. So a Sharpie is a marker. And let me show you what a Sharpie looks like. So this is a Sharpie. If you've not seen it before, this is a Sharpie. You can see it written there. Sharpie. Sharpie, baby. And so I remember that there was this episode about Sharpies, and I absolutely enjoyed it. See, I enjoyed every single episode. I always looked forward to it. See, I see everything. I watched, like, I think I'm just shy of, you know, 3 more episodes. I've not yet watched like maybe 3 more episodes, maybe 4. But the rest I've watched them, like episode season 1, season 2. I was like, you know what, I be raging because like I would not even lie, I enjoyed the podcast. It was so relaxing, it was different. It wasn't like there's nobody screaming about the news or what's happening on the TV or what's happening around the world. It is just pure podcast for interesting things. And you know, just you know, imagine this thing had a life, and it had a, so I think in the episode I watched, this was the wife. And so there was a time that they covered the Sharpie with another cover, and the wife was upset, or she felt away from him, or he felt insecure. So, you know, it's just interesting to like see things from that point of view. And also I learned a lot of things from there. And one thing I learned is that, do you know that white sand beaches are the poop of carrot fish? Do you know? I did not know. At the end of almost every episode, or in the middle of every episode, you learn something, and I like it, love it, because I like to learn. But also at the same time, because I don't know, there's just something sweet about the whole thing. So that's what Everything Is Alive is about, you know, about non-living things talking like they have emotions, talking about their experiences. So something like a pair of socks to talk about how it has not been washed for this, how it feels dirty, and how it likes the fact that its owner uses it all the time, you know, something like that. It's really sweet and it's very interesting. It's something that you can use to relax. You can actually use to relax. So stop watching radio, stop listening to bad news around the world, and actually key into podcasts. So the last one is Radio Diaries. So Radio Diaries is, I love Radio Diaries because Radio Diaries is about stories from around the world, about people's lives, and most times, yeah, it's about people's deep experiences. So I remember this one that stood out for me is you know, they gave this girl from South Africa a recorder, and she recorded her life, you know, living as a HIV positive person. You know, she had a daughter, and you know, she recorded her life. You know, she died eventually, but like, you know, just getting into the mind of people. You know, I think that listening to some of these things can help you build empathy. For me, Radio Diaries is very intriguing because these people record their lives in their own words. Like, you know, I felt it. I could feel the woman's emotions when she was speaking. I love that while the initiative is to, you know, entertain, it also helps us, the people that are not going through this. We don't know people that have gone through this. We don't have family members that have gone through this. It helps us to empathize with these people. I'm really sorry about all the noise. Today is a really noisy day and it's just very annoying, but there's nothing I can do. I have to record nonetheless. So please, let's continue. So it really helps us to you know, see things from these people's point of view. You know, there was a lot of stigma around HIV and AIDS. I've learned about a lot of diseases from, you know, listening to podcasts and, you know, watching movies, and I've heard like from family members or people close to them how, you know, that life was, you know, how that life has been. And you know, it's just sweet to just, you know, learn about people's lives from different places or different parts of the world, facing different things. So I'm going to give you guys 2 bonus podcasts. One is Leo, L-O-R-E. So Leo is a podcast that talks about historical events, like weird historical events. Leo talks about things that happened in different certain eras, and most times it focuses on, like, let's say stories. Like, let's say in the medieval century there was a monster called lockets. Okay, no, not only that, but there's a lot of history involved in all of those things. Erin goes through a lot of research, so like you get like the full package, and you also get the stories, and you also get, like, see, when you're listening to the thing, you'll be like, oh no, was Erin there when all of this went down? So, but the thing about it is, most of the stories are weird, so they're like a cabinet of curiosities. If you're a curious person, you want to watch it, and you like to know about historical events, what happened at the time when Christianity was just getting into Europe, sorry, to America, or different parts, what happened, just events that you may not just see in not just see if you're just scrolling through the internet, you understand? So that's an interesting one. And then story cause. So story cause is similar to radio diaries, but story cause is like an initiative where people get into a studio and they talk about like their experiences with each other. So like maybe people that were strangers before, or people that that were related, talk about things, a certain issue that they faced together. Like I remember there was one that the mother and the son were in the same studio, and they were talking about their dad. So the dad fought, I think he fought one of those wars, and the dad and the mother they were together for a while, and then I think based on the PTSD that he faced, he eventually started drinking, and he had to leave because it wasn't good to raise the children like that. And in circumstances like that, everybody's always screaming that, oh my god, why is the dad not present, why is the dad not there, like and so the mother explained this whole situation and explained to the boy. So they talked about it in the studio, and like just hearing people's point of views when it comes to that type of thing is very interesting. So now that I've spoken to you about this, put off your radio, stop listening to news. See, I'm not saying you should not listen to news, but honestly, listening to news back to back to back, especially, let me not talk. The point is, check out podcasts. I swear, podcasts are very, very cool. If you're looking for a way to stop being on social media for so long, I think that podcast is a very good way to pass time, because podcasts need your attention, but at the same time, it's like you're relaxing your brain, but at the same time you're using your brain and you're learning things, and you are just entertaining yourself at the same time. Like, see, it's a win-win for everybody. You're not listening to news, you're not listening to things that are going to trigger you or make you feel bad or make you feel like the world is going to turn upside down. These days there's a lot of negative news. Like, honestly, I feel like people are making so much money out of negative news that it is just important to be intentional about focusing on positive news, or focusing on things that would actually benefit you. And you will learn a lot about things, you entertain yourself, and you will be off social media, and you'll be off all of that drama. So now that I've come to the end of this, would you give me a round of applause, please? Wherever you are, please give me a round of applause, by all means. I'm waiting. Okay, thank you. If you enjoyed this, please like, share, comment. Like, share, comment. Yeah, like, share, comment. And like, share, comment, and subscribe. Yes, that's what I want to say. Yes, do all of those things. Those are beautiful actions you should take. So I hope that I've convinced you that podcasts are sweet. And something I'd like to add is that podcasts are interesting because there are different kinds of podcasts. I know there are podcasts on a lot of things. Before I landed on all of these things and I started saving these things and being intentional, I landed on a couple. There are podcasts about almost everything. There's podcasts about music, there's podcasts about comedy, there's podcasts about science, there's podcasts about project management, there's podcasts about tech startups, there's even TED Talk podcasts, there's podcasts about people talking about their lives, there's podcasts about there's almost nothing that you not find a podcast about. So aside these ones I've talked about, I just talked about these ones because they are very neutral and they are just podcasts that you can use to pass time, just interest yourself, nothing serious. You're not using your brain, you're not trying to learn anything, you're not trying to like intentionally learn anything, you're just trying to like pass time and just, you know, entertain yourself instead of doing something else that is a vice. So you can explore podcasts, and here I'm talking like I'm a sales girl. Anyway, you can get podcasts in different places. So if you use Spotify, you will definitely be able to have access to podcasts, Apple Music, Apple Podcasts. And I used to hear one, is it Acast? Yes, Acast too. Yes, Teacher. I can't remember the one I started with, but yeah, I've been using Apple Podcasts since, because I mean it's easier. Like I don't need to do anything. The app is already on my phone. I don't need to download anything again. So anyway, hey guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please comment, like, share, subscribe. Okay, have a nice day. Bye.